Advancement in the Soviet army can be rapid. Continue to accumulate victories, and the future is yours. One of our convoys is moving through enemy territory. You have been assigned to defend the convoy as they move through the area. Be sure that they reach their destination intact. As a reward for your esteemed service, you have been given a great honor. Our latest advancement in air warfare, the MiG attack aircraft, is at your disposal. Essentially a bomber. Use it to destroy heavy concentrations of Allied armor. With this and your standard complement of Yak aircraft, you should have no problem in keeping the convoy safe.
Reinforcements have arrived. New construction options. Reinforcements have arrived. Mission saved. Convoy approaching.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Waiting order. Waiting orders. Waiting order. Yes, sir. Reporting. Comrade. Yes, sir. Comrade. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Reporting. Comrade. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Awaiting orders. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledge. 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 Affirmative. Yes, sir. Reporting. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Vehicle report. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledge. Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative.
Spy plane
Affirmative.
ready.
Affirmative.
Select target.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledge. 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 Affirmative. 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 Acknowledge. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledge. 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 Affirmative. 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 Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Reporting. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir.
Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Waiting order. Affirmative. Comrade. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Spy plane ready.
Reporting. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Vehicle reported. Vehicle report. Comrade. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Select target.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Reporting. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders. Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit lost. Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Acknowledge.
Building.
Reporting. Acknowledge. Waiting order. Affirmative. Acknowledge.
Unit ready. Mission saved.
Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Awaiting for acknowledge. Awaiting order. Affirmative. Waiting order. Acknowledge. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Reporting at
Spy
once.
plane ready.
Reporting.
Timer started. Unit lost. Mission saved. Building. Select target. Unit ready.
Waiting for acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Vehicle report. Waiting for acknowledge. Vehicle report. Acknowledge. Waiting order. Acknowledge. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative.
Detected. Reinforcements have arrived.
Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledge. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Report. Acknowledge. Engineering. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit
Yes.
lost.
Affirmative.
Spy plane ready.
Reporting. Affirmative. Yes. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative.
Select target.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Vehicle report. Acknowledge. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledge.
Building.
Yes, sir.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Acknowledge. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. 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 Yes, sir. Vehicle reporting. Comrade. Vehicle reporting. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Waiting for affirmative. Acknowledge. 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 Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Awaiting orders.
Select target. 10 minutes remaining.
Reporting. Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
All Stargate ready.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Select target.
Reporting. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Comrade. Waiting for affirmative.
Net lost.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Waiting for acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Vehicle report. Acknowledged. Comrade. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged.
Warning, 4 minutes remaining.
Vehicle report. Acknowledged.
Mission accomplished.